Hello, welcome to Unfrazzle TV. I'm Emma Leavesley, the woman that unfrazzles doctors, and today I'm joined by Dr Ranj Sagoo, who is a GP, coach, hypnotherapist, and author. So, hi, it's good to have you on the show, Ranj.
Hi, good evening. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I've given a bit of an introduction.
Mm.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'll start with general practice. So yeah, I'm a GP. I've been a GP now for probably the past 13 years. Been in medicine for about in total about 20 years now. So I've kind of got quite a bit of experience behind me. I started off in orthopedics after finishing my medical training, but actually kind of found my place in general practice. Yeah, and then from there, over the last few years, again, kind of continuing kind of my journey in terms of exploring kind of what health and healing means to me. Kind of found myself kind of training as a coach, NLP practitioner, and hypnotherapist, which is something that I do now privately. So mainly work with professionals who are going through burnout, difficulties with, sort of work-life balance, those sorts of things, a lot of issues with things like past trauma and things like that, which I find, really is satisfying work.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know we've got quite a lot of overlap over what we do.
Mm.
Um, and we talked previously on the Team Healthcare podcast. So it's good to have you back, especially now that you've got all this exciting stuff going on. You've got your book coming out,
Sure. Yeah.
and I know that you've been doing lots of other work behind the scenes on top of being a GP. And also, you're going to talk to us about your art, and you've got some examples to show us, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, sure. Okay, cool.
We've got a lot to pack in today.
Yeah,
So
sure.
you've mentioned about your private practice with the coaching and the
Mm.
hypnotherapy. I know that you've been doing some other work as well.
Been doing so recently started doing a few events, and we did our own event recently on the 1st of November, which was event I did with two colleagues, and we spoke. The event was called Burnout to Balance. So it was kind of taking people on this journey through understanding, well, what actually is burnout, and mostly from an experiential point of view, because we can all look up the definition of burnout, but for most of us, we don't know we're going through it until, either we're fully burnt out or, you know, or, you're kind of beyond that stage or kind of late on. And so it was really important to kind of get across, well, what is the experience of burnout? And obviously it's very different for everybody, but just to kind of help people start to build that awareness of, oh, actually, those are some of the things that I've been going through, or that's kind of the way I feel. And then you start to kind of connect the dots and say, oh, am I going through burnout? That's when you start to answer those questions. So that was kind of the first part of it. And then, so first of it was, raising that awareness of what burnout is and kind of starting to ask those questions of whether you're going through it. And then it was all about, well, okay, if I'm going through burnout, how do I start to recover? And between the three of us, we're all kind of creatives. So my two colleagues are musicians, and obviously I'm an artist. So we like to use creative ways at healing. So the second part of the talk was, well, what can we do? So there's obviously the traditional stuff like journaling and mindfulness and all of that, but then there's different ways in terms of using music for healing. One of my colleagues was talking about sound frequencies, and how they can help with healing, and then even things like art and doing using art as a way of healing. And then it was all about, once we've kind of helped ourselves to recover? Well, how do we maintain that? How do we create resilience and boundaries, healthy boundaries?
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And it's interesting that you've said about how people don't realise they're going through burnout.
Yeah.
Because that was definitely the case for me. I looking back, I'd been showing signs and symptoms for about 2 years and just carried on. And clearly the worst thing that you can do is just push through and carry on, because it just gets worse. And I had a discussion with someone who asked, well, I like to think I'm intelligent. Would you have insight with burnout? And quite frankly, probably no, unless you know what to look for. Do you find that's the same with the people you've worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the whole point of, sort of doing these kinds of talks. And that's why I really like, using social media and things to, try and kind of raise that awareness, because we're not aware of it. Even kind of on my own journey, I look back now and I was like, well, now I understand what was happening at the time. You know what I mean? Why I was so drained, why I was always exhausted. Why, sometimes I'd have a bit of a short temper. You then start to realize, well, that was because you were burning out, basically.
Yeah. And I think especially in like professionals, there is that tendency to ignore your own problems and focus on everybody else's.
Yeah, absolutely. It's multifaceted, isn't it? We always try to push on. We always try to, especially professionals, because we kind of feel that responsibility to carry on. And if I don't turn up to work tomorrow, then who's going to cover, and all of these sorts of things. And so you're always trying to push on, especially if you're in leadership roles, and that you're like, I am. I'm responsible to a lot of people. I have to keep working, and we just try to push through it, and we're often harder on ourselves than on other people. As we always say, don't worry about it. You'll get through it. Just keep going. Holidays just around the corner, so just keep going until you break.
Yeah, it's that just get to the next stage, to the next stage, absolutely. Next weekend, and it's you're limping from one crisis to another.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And what would you say the biggest factor in recovery from burnout was for you?
It's the thing that I always lead with now is that awareness. It's starting to listen internally to what's going on. Because that's where it has to start. It has to be recognizing the signs in yourself and having that compassion for yourself. And that's where the narrative starts to change, rather than just saying, oh, just don't worry about it, keep pushing on. I know you're tired, you can get through it. Is actually, when you kind of approach it with compassion, you start to ask yourself, well, why am I feeling so tired? What's going on? What do I need to change? What do I need to do differently? And that's when you can start to make the changes that you need to.
Yeah. Rather than I should be able to do this. Why can't I?
Yeah, absolutely.
The sort of self-blame in a talk.
Yeah, and one of the questions I always ask is, when I'm having these conversations, is, well, what would you say to your friend if they were going through the same thing? Because the answer that you give yourself is very different to the answer that you give to a friend.
Yeah, definitely. We're a lot kinder to other people than we are to ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
And with healthcare professionals, I sometimes use it. What would you say to a patient?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So with the coaching and the hypnotherapy, I know you work with mainly professionals. What sort of stages do they come to you at would you say mainly? Is it when they're actually burnt out or when they're feeling stressed?
Majority are kind of at the stress stage.
Mm.
But I've had a few people, kind of at the burnt out stage, where, really they feel, the kind of wheels have fallen off, they're at that
Mm.
really low point. Um, and it's incredible to see their journeys and how they've kind of come from that stage,
Mm.
to actually really enjoying life. I've had one client who first came and he said, one of the first things he said is, "I don't like waking up in the morning." He said, I dread each day.
Mm.
And by the end of the time that we were working together, he was like, he was so full of life. It's like, I'm actually enjoying everything now, his relationships, work, he had a future plan.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the most satisfying things that you can ever do.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds like an amazing transformation, because I think when you're at that point of burnout, it feels like things can't get any better.
Absolutely.
So if anyone out there is watching this or listening to this, just remember that even if it feels right now like things can't get better, it really, really can.
Yeah,
I know for myself, that's definitely the case. I was basically planning on ending it. And looking back now, I'm just so glad that I didn't, because life does get a lot better.
Yeah.
And as you say, the first thing you've got to do is be aware of what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, having that compassion, that kindness for yourself. It's difficult, especially when you're, as you probably say, at that low point, it's really hard to be kind to yourself and look at yourself with compassion. But that's where we need to start. Just small steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And not, because I think one problem that you can get is like, right, okay, I've got this burnout thing, I need to get back on it straight away. How can I get better as quickly as possible?
Yeah.
And it doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
No, definitely. No. Yeah.
Okay. So we've mentioned the creativity. I know that's a big thing for myself. I'm a musician, so music's my thing. But
Brilliant.
I also like photography and art and things. Now I know that you're an artist, and I've seen your art. I think it's absolutely fantastic. You're really, really talented, and especially for somebody who's so busy. And this is like just something else that you do.
Yeah, it kind of comes in fits and starts. I can't. It's not something I can do all the time, depending on kind of things. But it was something that I kind of picked up again during lockdown. Actually, I hadn't done any art probably since GCSEs.
Right.
So I did GCSE art, but then obviously after GCSEs going into A levels, the plan was to do medicine, and then the art was kind of left by the wayside. But lockdown kind of gave me the opportunity to pick it back up again, and it came at a really good time as well, because it was a very stressful time for most people, and it just gave me this kind of it was quite kind of meditative. It was a really cathartic experience, and I just started doing more and more of it. It was I couldn't get enough of it, really.
Yeah, I'm quite shocked now that you've only been doing it for what, 5 years, and you're really, really good. So, what benefits would you say that you get from art? I know you've said that it's meditative.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you get from it?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of things. One is kind of the meditative sort of aspects to it. You can just kind of calms your nervous system. You can kind of switch off. It's one of those mindful techniques where it can really help you, because you're focusing on doing your work. You can, all of those sort of racing thoughts and things that you're worried about just disappear, and you're just kind of present in the moment. And one of the other kind of beautiful things is kind of watching this piece come to life, and I find that really satisfying as well. But but just sort of the whole kind of all the other aspects to it as well, sort of the texture of the materials you're using. So it's a very kind of sort of kinesthetic experience. So you get the visual experience of the colors, and again the sort of the piece coming to life, and yeah, it's just so relaxing. I would sometimes I'd come home after work, after dinner, and I might sit down at 8 o'clock thinking I'm going to do an hour or so, and it would be like 12 o'clock midnight before I realised what time it was, and everyone else has gone to sleep.
Yeah, it's you in the zone and getting lost in it.
Absolutely, yeah. You get into this kind of flow state, which is really nice, and you probably get that with music as well.
Yeah, I've done that where I've been composing something, and then I realise, oh heck, it's like 1 a.m. I'd better go to bed. So yeah, and I think as well it allows you to express yourself too.
Yeah.
And that can be good, because sometimes, while journaling's great and it's great to get thoughts off your mind, sometimes the thoughts we have are easier to get down in a picture.
Yeah, and sometimes words just can't. They can't portray what you're trying to feel. So there's different ways of showing those emotions.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly useful for people who struggle to express themselves in words. And I used to do drawing and talking as a therapy, and the one thing I'd say to people is it doesn't have to be good. This is just you getting your thoughts from your head onto paper.
Absolutely.
But obviously you've created some like wonderful, beautiful pieces of art. So are we okay to have a look at them? And if you want to kind of talk us through them, where the idea came from?
Yeah, sure.
No.
Do you want me to can you share? Cool.
There we go. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so kind of a bit of background to my artwork. It's mainly, well, majority of it is wildlife artwork. I just love wildlife, and again, it's that whole nature and sort of that very natural experience. And what I've always tried to do was show emotions through animals. And that's kind of where my artwork is. So trying to express very human emotions, but through kind of animals. Because again, so nature is obviously very raw, it's very authentic, it's very sort of genuine, and it was trying to use that to express, what we feel kind of day to day. This was probably the first piece I did when I first picked up a pencil again. So this was obviously a lion portrait in kind of black and white, and it was to show kind of two sides of a lion. We know that they can be very fierce. They can be very what's the right word? Imposing, if you like, but they're also kind of very gentle as well, and that was kind of why it was titled Gentle Grandeur, because it shows a very gentle animal with this kind of really grand, majestic sort of appearance. So that was that piece. So that was one of the first ones that I did. Then I did a series that was called the Predator Prey series, and this series was all about that kind of predator prey relationship. It was trying to explore that kind of moment just before that interaction, or the when the predator attacks the prey. So each piece was kind of like this. It was a reflection of the prey in the eye of the predator, to try and capture the sort of the emotion and almost like what was going on inside the head of each animal, if you like. So here we've got a kind of a a crocodile stalking a capybara. And it was called patience because of the way crocodiles, patiently stalk their prey. They can, sit there for hours, stalking their prey, can't they? And then you've got this almost, it's very innocent looking capybara who maybe kind of has got an inkling that something's going on. So yeah, it was just to kind of get that across. I don't know kind of whether that kind of comes across in the picture.
Yeah, and I'm like amazed at the amount of detail that you managed to get in a reflection in an eye.
Sure. Okay. I mean, this was quite a big piece. This is it was done on A2 size, so it was quite big.
Yeah, and it's like when you watch those nature documentaries and you've got the predator and the prey, and you're always like rooting for the prey.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
nature, it's normal for both to do what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it was just to kind of depict that. And this was part of the same series. So this was a tiger stalking a water buffalo, and there you can see this is kind of almost that point where they've both made eye contact, and they're almost anticipating what the other one's going to do.
Yeah, that's like, again, you've got all that detailing, but what I love about your work is the expression that you get across in the animal's eyes, considering it's photorealistic as well. It's
Yeah, I mean, the eyes are the most important. Well, for me, I think the eye is the most important. I always start when I'm doing my piece. I always start with the eyes, because if I can't get the eyes right, then the whole piece is going to waste. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The eyes capture so much emotion. And a couple of the end pieces was a series all about the eyes and the expression that you get in the eyes. I'll show you in a second. And then kind of it did lead on to kind of exhibiting some work in some galleries and me entering some art competitions as well. So this piece was for a competition that was all about kind of endangered species. It's a competition that they run annually called Sketch for Survival. It's quite a big competition, and I think this was one of the highly commended pieces in that competition. And this one it's obviously depicting the white rhino. I do like doing black and white because I like the sort of the drama and the intensity it creates. And this was called New Pasture. So the white rhino, I think there's about 14,000 left in the world. So they are, sort of getting into the endangered species category. And so Pastures New just kind of represents, well, it's almost like there's a heavenly light shining down, giving that reflection of, this rhino might eventually becoming extinct, and it's kind of then moving on to new pastures somewhere else, and we won't ever get to see them again.
Yeah, the lighting on that is amazing. Like it's just for doing that in pencil. That's
And I think it really helps to show, again, both sides. The rhinos, they can be intimidating, but they're also, so gentle, and all it's doing is grazing. And this was, I think, the following year. So I entered the same competition again, and this was one of the finalists. And this was the Sumatran orangutan. Again, these are endangered. And again, it was entitled "I've Got You," and it was basically the mother orangutan, sort of holding her baby tight to her chest, to say, I've got you, I'm looking after you. But obviously we know that the things that are endangering the orangutans is obviously deforestation and things like that, which, she's unaware that she's not going to be able to protect it against.
Yeah. You can sort of see the protective mama bear type.
Absolutely, yeah. She's like cradling the child.
But also, there is like a sadness in her eyes as well.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. Brilliant. And then, this was, again, I did enter quite a few competitions at the time. I really got into it, and, there was, I kind of saw that there's quite a few different things that you can actually do, as well as kind of just exhibiting in galleries. And I actually do like the sort of the conservation side of things. Again, it's all about bringing awareness to things that are going on in the world that we don't always know about. So there was a movie, almost like a documentary, came out about the Asiatic cheetah, which is kind of a subspecies of cheetah, and there are only, I think there's probably less than 50 left in the world of the Asiatic cheetah. And so they made a documentary, kind of as a kind of a conservation documentary, and alongside it they ran this competition, and again this actually won one of the finalist prizes, and it was on. So they did an exhibition at the Oxo Tower in London, and this was on display there. And again, this was supposed to depict, so the title Tomorrow kind of depicts this, this baby cheetah just kind of looking out into the distance, kind of unsure about what tomorrow's going to bring, in terms of, whether the species is still going to be here. And the black background was, again, to create that feeling of the unknown.
Mm. Good use of negative space.
Yeah. So that was that one. And then and this was one, this was kind of one I began a series which I actually didn't finish, but this series was all about that kind of parent-child relationship. So each picture was going to represent kind of a parent and the child, and this one was again the lion and the lion cub. And again, you can, and it was kind of trying to depict, what they're trying to say to each other, just through their kind of emotions. And you can see the lion cub looking up to his father, and the father being this kind of really, again, the lion obviously being the king of the jungle, and the male lion being kind of the head of the family, and everyone kind of looks up to this lion, and he's there trying to impart his wisdom on his young lion cub.
Is that in pencil as well?
So I mainly use pastel, so these are all pastel drawings.
Right, okay.
And then this was the series I was telling you about kind of earlier, where each one of these was a close-up of the eyes of a big cat. So you've got a cheetah here, and you can see the intensity in the eyes of the cheetah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you've got like the reflection in there again as well, and the eyelashes. There's like loads of detail in there.
Yeah. And then this one is the clouded leopard, and the clouded leopard, not a lot of people know about them, because they are very kind of shy and sort of shy big cats, and they hide in sort of rainforests, up in trees and things like that. So they are a bit of an enigma, if you like. Cool. I think that's all of them.
Right. Excellent. Okay, so I know you've mentioned you've done quite a few competitions and exhibitions and things. Have you got any plans to take your art any further?
No, I think I think kind of doing all that, it was a nice experience at the time, but I kind of realized that I didn't like sort of the pressure that came with it. There was almost a pressure to to keep doing competitions or keep trying to exhibit, and then it kind of and then people said, do you want to sell your art? And then kind of thinking about it, I didn't really want to get stuck behind how much interest is my work getting, how many sales am I getting. I didn't want it to be that, so I just do it for kind of my own well-being now.
Yeah, plus you'd have to not have those lovely pieces as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so we'll move on to your book then. That when is that coming out? It's December, isn't it?
1st of December, yeah, so only a week to go.
Yeah. Okay. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the book and why you decided to write it?
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting sort of book. It's called Self-Worth and Where to Find It. And self-worth is one of those things that we probably don't think about, but it's about all of those things that sort of shape our view of the world and our view of ourselves, kind of importantly. And it's something that I started thinking about when the actual story, which I tell in the introduction of the book. Again, I like things to be very experiential because I want sort of the reader to connect and really put themselves in the person or in kind of my shoes when I'm telling this story, because again, I think it's a story that people kind of can resonate with. And basically it's a story of when I went to a kind of a networking event. So like a business networking event where, where everybody kind of got a 60-second pitch. And I just kind of felt I felt the anxiety building as it kind of got closer to my turn. And kind of, when that inner critic starts kicking in and says, oh, you're going to mess this up. People are going to laugh at you, or why do people want to know, what you've got to offer? There's so many other amazing people in the room. What have you got to say that anyone's going to be, all of those things started kicking in, and then the anxiety started building. And it got to a point where the anxiety was really bad. When it was my turn, I just got up, did the pitch. I don't remember any of it because, your adrenaline's running. You just kind of rush through it, and then you just kind of sit down and try and hide. And it was on my way home after that I started thinking, I was like, why do I always do that? I can tell myself that actually, I do have some credibility. Do you know what I mean? I do have something worth sharing. But why is it in those moments that I can't do it, that it just gets overridden by this anxiety? And then I started to look back, and I'm like, well, this always happens, and it always happens in these situations. When I'm kind of either the center of attention, where I've got to stand up and do a speech, or things like this, then it always kicks in. And it always is that kind of imposter syndrome kind of feeling. And then I started to explore kind of where all that comes from. And it just kind of led from there, and it started to explore where do these kinds of beliefs, these narratives, where does the inner critic come from? How does that develop? And so I started to sort of explore, how those beliefs form, and it's all through things like, stuff that we've been through childhood, experiences that we've been through, all these different things that kind of start to develop and kind of wire in our way of seeing ourselves and seeing the world. And then I started looking at, the patients that I work with and the clients that I work with, and seeing very similar stories and narratives that they go through as well. And I was like, well, if I'm going through it and everyone else is going through it, then, why don't I put this into a book to help? Again, it's to raise that awareness of it, and that's the point of it being very experiential, because if people can connect with the stories, then they can be like, oh, that's what I've been doing. And then what the book does is it kind of develops chapter on chapter a sort of a toolbox of different techniques that people can use, one, to reflect on themselves. So it kind of, at the end of each chapter, there's kind of a reflection space. So it asks a few questions of, when was the last time you said yes when you didn't actually want to do something, and how did that actually make you feel at the time? What did that mean you couldn't do because you took on this extra responsibility that you didn't need to take on at the time? So it gets people to start reflecting, and then it kind of takes you through some different techniques and different tools that you can use. So by the end of it, by the last chapter, you kind of built up this resource of different techniques, different different tools that you can use to start rewiring, changing the way you kind of talk to yourself and the way you see the world.
Yeah, and I like how you've built it from your experience too. It's like modelling. Yeah, it's okay. It's a normal human experience to go through these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to include some of my own stories because I think it kind of, it allows people to feel, well, he's a doctor. He shouldn't be going through things like this. If he's going through it, it's all right for me to go through it as well. Yeah. It's kind of very kind of equalizing, I think.
Yeah, and I think that if more doctors were open about these things, then less doctors would feel alone in the struggling.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
I think it's really good that you're doing this, because I work with a lot of doctors who feel like they're broken somehow because they're struggling with what is a normal reaction to the situation that they're in. And I think we can all suffer from imposter syndrome. Doesn't matter. I mean, people have said to me, "Oh, well, you're a psychological therapist. That means you can never ever have any problems ever," which is just not true. And I still get imposter syndrome, and I think, it's how you deal with it and not letting it win. But it's an important thing, definitely.
Yeah, and we sometimes feel that way ourselves. If being a psychologist or being a doctor, you're like, well, I shouldn't feel like this because I know, or I should know how to deal with it.
Definitely. I remember counselling a clinic for a doctor who was off sick, and I had to ring the patients, and they were saying, "A doctor being sick."
Yeah.
Well, that's not very good, is it?
Yeah, I know. But you're right, and that's the thing. Like, we tell ourselves these things that we shouldn't. We shouldn't feel like it's because we should know what to do, but you can't. These things are subconscious. These are kind of wired into us, so it doesn't matter how intelligent you are, how much you know about it. If it's kind of wired into you that you're going to kind of think, feel, and behave in that way, it's going to happen until you start to address it.
Yeah. And going back to your artwork, we're all the prey, and our brains are wired up to protect us from those predators.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not something that's within our control. It's there for our safety, because evolutionary-wise, our brains haven't caught up.
Yeah.
And we're not supposed to all be sat with iPads and phones and not being outside in the countryside.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So is it a book that's aimed at anybody? Can anyone pick the book up and read it?
Yeah, I mean, it's aimed at anybody, anybody that is going through, stresses, burnout, anybody that, feels that there's, that they are having difficulties, or that they've kind of got patterns that they get frustrated with, so it is for anybody. And I've written it in a way that there's a lot of experience, but there's also a lot of sort of the neuroscience and the psychology in there as well. Not too much that it's difficult to read, but it's hopefully there's a good balance of that. And there's also some of my creativity in there as well. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but a few of the chapters I use a lot of metaphors and kind of fictional stories to depict what's kind of going on. So there's a story about a box in an attic, and it is all about that perception of of kind of worthlessness, this kind of box sitting in the attic on its own, just gathering cobwebs, when it used to be useful, when the owners used to use the box all the time, and now it's just sitting in the attic and thinking, I'm worthless. So there's a lot of there's kind of a few different elements in there. So I'm hoping it's got something for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And us hypnotherapists love a good metaphor, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And it's going to be out on the 1st of December.
1st of December, yeah, on Amazon. Yeah. And you can get it as an ebook, paperback, or as a hardback.
Mm-hmm. Are you planning on doing any launch events for it?
Yes, I am. I just, again, haven't really had time to look at venues and stuff. But yeah, probably in the new year now we'll do some launch events.
Yeah, and that'll be in Birmingham.
Probably, yeah. I'll probably need to stay local.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely let me know about that. I'll come down and see you. Okay. So with the book, then you've got that coming out. You've possibly got the launch event in Birmingham. Is there any other way that people can have a look at what you're doing? I know you've got a YouTube channel.
Yeah. Again, so the YouTube channel is there. It's I would have to admit I don't put a lot of content on there too much. Most of my sort of content's on my Instagram, and LinkedIn and Facebook pages. So yeah, you can find me on there. The LinkedIn, sorry, not LinkedIn, Instagram is Dr Ranj _life coach. And LinkedIn is just my name, Dr Ranj Sagoo, and same as Facebook as well. And I do have a website as well, if anyone wants to sort of have a look and have a look at the sort of the coaching programs and things that I do, and that's drranjsagoo.com.
Okay.
And in the new year, we're trying to move forward and do more of these sort of live events. So there will be some more kind of live events coming next year.
Excellent. If any of the viewers have got any questions for Ranj, if you just pop them in the comments, and we can ask while you're here. Okay, so I've got a question. As a hypnotherapist, now you've mentioned that you work a lot with trauma. Trauma's my main area of specialism. Do you find that the metaphorical stuff works better when helping with trauma, or do you get people to reprocess in other ways?
I think it depends on the client. I use both. I use metaphors. We do inner child kind of work, and sort of regression stuff as well. So it really depends on. Just kind of. It's difficult to describe. You kind of get most of it from kind of feeling what's happening at the time. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, metaphors are great, because it's all about speaking to the subconscious, and obviously the subconscious works in weird and wonderful ways, and it likes the metaphor. So yeah, metaphors are great.
Yeah. And what do you think about dreams with regard to trauma healing?
I've not explored that part. I've not looked into dreams. I don't know. Do you have experience with looking at dreams?
No, it's just like a particular area that I'm interested in at the moment, because it's obviously, well, there are some beliefs that dreams are just random, like actions and connections of your brain flipping through things and reassessing risk of past like trauma and events. Whereas there's the sort of classical, like almost like Ericksonian ways of looking at dreams as a reflection of the subconscious.
Mm.
So I know when I did my training, we were asked to keep a dream diary.
Okay.
Nobody ever asked to look at it or really mentioned it, so I always wondered why
Okay.
we were asked to do that.
Yeah. Did you notice any patterns yourself from it?
Well, I have noticed recently that if we like look at archetypes, that there's a lot of that reflected in who's popping up in my dreams. So yeah, I think that might be something to it, but it could just be random. So yeah. I'd love to do some like fMRI studies and things. That's my PhD idea anyway.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So your book's coming out on the 1st of December. I will add all the links into the notes and description. Any kind of tips for anybody who's maybe watching this and is feeling that they may be burnt out?
Yeah, first of all, it's, just approach things or approach yourself with a bit of compassion and kindness. And if you are feeling something, just kind of lean into it. And, without judgment, just notice kind of what you're feeling. And that's often the start, is just noticing and kind of acknowledging, well, I am actually feeling this. And then that is what opens that kind of internal dialogue of, well, where is this coming from? What's happening in my life? And it's just allowing yourself to kind of explore that. And hopefully this shows people that it's okay to talk about it. So reach out to, your doctors or someone, or even to start in conversation might be with someone you trust, a friend or a relative, just to start the conversation. And then obviously then reach out to a specialist or your doctor who might be able to help. Because there is, like you say, like we said at the beginning, even for people that felt there was no way out, there definitely is.
Yeah, definitely. And I think talking about it is really, really important. Because suffering on your own, it's not going to get any better. So that's really good advice. And I think the more people that talk about this stuff, the better, because you then find you're not as alone as you think you are.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I'll put all the details in the description. If we're after the 1st of December, I will put the link to the Amazon store in there so that people can buy it. Next week, I'm going to be swapping seats. So my friend John Maxwell, he's going to be hosting and interviewing me.
Oh, wow.
Because I've realised that I've done podcasts and all sorts, and I've not actually really talked about what I do. So I suppose I'd better myself. And I don't like just talking. I like to talk to somebody. So my friend John is going to come on and ask me questions.
Oh, brilliant.
You've met John actually at my book launch. He was the guy who was emceeing. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
So so he's going to come on and grill me. So that should be interesting. And then after that, I've got another couple of guest books. But what I really want to do is get people to come on the show. So it can be anyone. This is wellbeing and mental health show for healthcare professionals. So if you work in healthcare or used to, you've got a story that you want to share, any good practice that you're currently providing or that's something that's worked to help with staff wellbeing. Obviously, we're coming up to, we're in winter, so things are getting tougher out there, and if you've got anything that can help people that are going through that at the moment, that would be absolutely fantastic. Anything that you think that the viewers would find interesting or beneficial, just drop me a line. If you go to the links on my YouTube channel, you can go to my link tree, and that's got contact form on email address and everything. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share so you don't miss any future episodes. And I will see you next week, where I will be the one being interviewed. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Ranj. It's been absolutely...
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, pleasure as always.
Thanks.
Okay, bye everyone.